One, I'd love for you to talk about the transportability. That was
Yes.
quite significant for me. When you guys were coming in, and then I was talking to Macy, and I said, okay, what are they going to need? Are we going to need a ramp? Are we going to need all of these other things on the way down the elevator? And there you were. Like you had easily come in with this device by yourself.
So portability was a big part for us because we wanted to be able to democratize healthcare. We didn't want you to have to build $1 million shielded room and have to have a crane remove the roof of your building to install this, because that's how the big magnets are installed. They crane them in through the roof, they rip a big hole in it, then they build this big shielded room with copper and half-inch thick steel around every single wall. So it's extremely costly, but it also takes over a year to plan and build. This is something that, as you mentioned, I rolled in the front door of your building, went through the bar to get to the elevator,
Right.
took it up the elevator, we rolled it right into your room, and guess what? We plugged it into a standard power outlet. We didn't need 400 volts. We didn't need helium to cool it down. We're able to go into any environment.
James,
Yes, sir.
tell me about yourself.
I am James Lavine. I am the Global Director of Program Development at Hyperfine. We have the world's first portable MRI system that is FDA cleared and can scan anywhere and in any environment that you put it in.
It's a lot. That's a lot. That's that type of device is needed. It is needed in the environments that we are involved in, and that is the federal ecosystem and the environments that I came from, where you have to go forward into that environment. Portability, transportability, expeditionary. It is needed.
Thank you. That's what we believe as well. Actually, the company was started and founded off a DoD grant specifically for that. Brain imaging, MRI, is the gold standard for looking at soft tissue, and the DoD saw that years ago, about 10 years ago, funded one of our founders, Dr. Matt Rosen, out of MGH, out of Harvard, that developed this technology specifically to make something portable, accessible, and able to go onto the battlefield. He worked with our other founder, Dr. Jonathan Rothberg, who is a serial entrepreneur, to help commercialize this technology and develop it. Over the past 10 years, we really started as a research company, grew our capabilities, and in 2021, we really launched commercially and started placing these into hospitals here in America, both on research use and clinical use on patients.
Oh, so you're still a young company.
Fairly young, yeah.
Yeah, just in the launch.
Yeah, from commercialization, we are definitely very young. We launched again as research, and we have still quite a bit of research. But as far as commercial availability, we really launched in the heart of COVID, which, as you could imagine, is not the greatest time to launch a product into a hospital space. But it was a very needed product. You were able to take this device up to patients in isolation rooms, scan them in their room, versus rolling a confirmed COVID patient through your hospital and potentially infecting others. So it worked out well, and since then we have grown exponentially as a team and as install base across the world. So now we have roughly 200 scanners across the world in many different countries, serving many different purposes.
So I know your company's organizational structure, but you're really leading this charge with your teammates.
Yeah.
It is a team sport. I know
No
it is.
question.
But I want to know about you, James. Like, what's your background? How did you end up where you're in and leading this large effort with this great team?
So I joined the company early in commercialization, one of the longest, if not the longest standing commercial sales or customer facing employees. And I worked my way up through the sales role into kind of a sales trainer role, into a corporate trainer role, and then managing some of our clinical teams that do the implementations, and then developing a team that takes over post implementation. And so the nickname I've been given is the Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
By our CEO, Maria Sands, because she
Okay.
knows she can plug me in wherever is the most need at that time. and I can help the company figure out where's the best way to move forward from here. So I identified the DoD, the military, the VA as a huge opportunity. I had worked with them in my past life, working at a large med tech company, one of the top three in the world. And working with the DoD and the VA, I understood that they are one of the largest purchasers of healthcare and one of the largest providers of healthcare globally. So it was an obvious transition for me to say, uh, we look at the verticals the company started, which is the hospital vertical, international business at other hospitals, as well as private practice clinics that we more recently have gotten into, and I helped kind of lead that charge. And I identified DoD VA as a very big chunk that we could be going after that has a critical need today that we can address today.
Let's talk about the Swoop device. Walk me through what makes it magical, right?
Yeah.
The distinguishing features of why, yes, there is a need, but what makes Swoop?
Swoop is amazing because it is the world's only FDA-cleared ultra-low field magnet. And when I talk about ultra-low field, it's better to level set on what is magnetic fields in MRI and how they're measured. So MRIs are measured in Tesla, not the vehicle you see driving around without a
Right.
driver, but that's measuring the magnetic field strength. When you look at hospitals, most of them have a 1.5 Tesla magnet, or if they are more academic, higher level institution, they may have a 3 Tesla magnet. And what those are equivalent to is essentially the big magnets that you see in junkyards picking up cars. That's about how strong they are.
Wow.
So there's a lot of risk with that, as you could imagine. And you probably heard in the news of issues where patients have been injured or even killed around an MRI, because if you bring metal into those rooms, they turn into a projectile, essentially a bullet that's going to be flying at a very high rate of speed, can either injure or kill you. Anything that's metal turns into that.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately, just recently there was in the news about an
yep, there was
incident
a
like that.
man up in, I believe, in the New York region that he had a very large chain around his neck as he wearing his jewelry, and he was sucked into the magnet and killed.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's super unfortunate because it's not a surprise that that does that, but there's a lack of understanding of how risky it is for the
Sure.
general public.
Sure.
So what makes us different and Hyperfine Swoop different is the ability to scan patients without that risk. And how we avoid that risk is our magnet is 0.064 Tesla, ultra low field. And historically, no one ever thought that you were able to do imaging at that level because you don't get enough signal to generate the image. Since AI and deep learning have become more mainstream, we've been able to implement that and do some proprietary AI reconstruction of our images utilizing AI to help optimize the image we have with such little signal from a refrigerator door magnet, essentially.
Yeah, I saw a demo where you actually took your key chain out and there it was hanging from the device,
Yeah,
right?
and I could easily remove
And
it
you
with one
easily
or two
remove it. That's
fingers,
exactly
right?
right.
So, and we were scanning you in a room that everybody had cell phones in their pockets, they
Hmm.
had metal devices, and none of them went shooting across the room. And that's because our magnet is about the strength of a refrigerator door magnet. So, that's one of the big risks we're eliminated. The other big risk that we've eliminated with this technology is induction heating. So you think of the burners that are new out there that, you're not using gas, you're not using the electric coil, it's just a piece of glass and somehow it heats up your pan
Right.
to cooking temperature. That's magnetic resonance heating. And that's the same thing that would normally happen in the big magnets at the hospital if you have any metal on you. So you'll hear of stories where people are going into the MRI and they're wearing their Lululemon leggings, and those actually have metal in them enough to cause third-degree burns. They use the metal in those leggings to make them antimicrobial, but a lot of people don't realize that they have metal in their spandex leggings.
Oh, wow.
And so with our device, because it's ultra low field, because we're not using superconductor magnets and we're using permanent magnets, there's no risk of heating for any type of metal that's in or around this device. That allows us to scan patients that have maybe a ventricle measuring device or a cannula that's in their neck that may have a temperature probe and a feeding tube or a breathing tube that may have some metal in it. So we're able to scan patients in environments that were thought previously to be impossible because we were using ultra low field and still able to get diagnostic quality images that are on the same par level as the current standard of care 1.5 Tesla magnets.
I know there's more. Keep going. Like this is
Yeah.
great. Like one, I'd love for you to talk about the transportability. That was
Yes.
quite significant for me. When you guys were coming in, and then I was talking to Macy, and I said, "Okay, what are they going to need? Are we going to need a ramp? Are we going to need all of these other things on the way down the elevator?" And there you were. Like you had easily come in with this device by yourself.
So portability was a big part for us because we wanted to be able to democratize healthcare. We didn't want you to have to build $1 million shielded room and have to have a crane remove the roof of your building to install this, because that's how the big magnets are installed. They crane them in through the roof, they rip a big hole in it, then they build this big shielded room with copper and half-inch thick steel around every single wall. So it's extremely costly, but it also takes over a year to plan and build. This is something that, as you mentioned, I rolled in the front door of your building, went through the bar to get to the elevator,
Right.
took it up the elevator, we rolled it right into your room, and guess what? We plugged it into a standard power outlet. We didn't need 400 volts. We didn't need helium to cool it down. We're able to go into any environment and scan. And again, going back to the shielded room, one of the reasons they do that with the big MRIs is not only for the safety aspect, but also for the image quality, because those MRIs are normally affected by radio frequencies that are produced by any piece of electronic, whether it's the halogen lights in the room or the pumps and monitors in an ICU room. So with our piece of technology, there are different sensors throughout the device that actually scan the room for radio frequencies and eliminate that out. So we're able to scan in what we would call a noisy environment with
Right.
lots of RF noise.
That's amazing. I just thought about in that last description is that, with those pre-existing assets already in hospitals, you could apply a level of safety precautions if there was to potentially to be a partnership with you, right? Just reducing some of the risk of an incident like that, leveraging, your proprietary systems, right? Or bringing out and replacing that magnet to something that is better. You guys are the experts. You're the leaders in this space. I don't know if that's been on the radar for you guys, but I see you leading the race, but also bringing others behind you in that way.
Yeah, and I would say, it's very important for us to clarify that we are not a replacement for the big magnet. The thing we focus on is brain right now, but when you look at the total volume of all MRIs ordered, the majority of them are brain. And so that technology is a very nice complement to the existing scanners, whether that's because there's not enough availability, which is a very common problem today, or maybe they don't have the certified technologist to operate it. Because our system is so much safer, we don't require an MRI technologist to be able to operate this machine. Anybody can run it. We like to say if you can run an iTunes playlist, you can run this device safely and get diagnostic quality images. And we've actually proven that model by sending it to underserved nations around the world where people have had zero MRI or medical imaging training. And now they are getting diagnostic quality images that are being read halfway around the world by a neuroradiologist. And they're able to diagnose things like cortical malaria, which we may have never seen otherwise because there may only be, 1 or 2 MRIs in the entire country. So we're giving accessibility, portability, but to your point, safety as well. When you think about patients that come in with stroke, time is brain. And with the typical MRI procedures, you have to screen for a myriad of different devices and implants that could potentially be in a patient. With our device, that is a much lower bar. Now, still is some screening for some active implanted devices, but the majority of the stuff that you normally think about now is no longer a risk. Anything that is passive, like maybe if you had strap metal in your body, say you're
Right.
a fighter in wartime, right? Or you're a welder,
Right.
and maybe you did some grinding and you have some strap metal and or a
Right.
bullet fragment. We have successfully scanned patients with bullet fragments in their brain with any untoward effect because our magnet is not strong enough to pull it out of their body or torque it or twist it in the body.
James, I have to tell you that, I was stationed in Fort Bliss, Texas, and my wife needed an MRI. And she had to get up at, I think it was 12:30, a.m. in order to access that MRI.
It's pretty common that there's such a backlog. And
There's a
that's
backlog. Yeah, well, you just mentioned backlog. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that time when my wife had to get up. It was somewhat disruptive just to get that level of care at that level of accuracy to diagnose any issues.
And people don't realize MRIs, they break. They have problems. So you could be scheduled to get an MRI 6 weeks out, right? And it's something that maybe you're not having a stroke, but you broke your wrist or your ankle or something like that. And there's such the backlog that if you book it 6 weeks out and the machine's broke, guess what? It could be another 2 or 3 months before they get it fixed and then get you back in. Then you're going to have to do your follow-up with whatever physician prescribed that MRI.
Right.
And that could be a couple more weeks to get into their office. So really, we're delaying care to try and get something that we know is the deciding factor on the treatment plan. And we're trying to shorten that window, especially when it comes to stroke or any type of traumatic brain injury, where we know the sooner we treat, the better the outcome for that patient. Whether that's here in a hospital, in a private practice neurology clinic, or on the battlefield, or even after some disaster relief.
Right.
There's been a lot of natural disasters here stateside that we just weren't prepared for. And this is the type of device that you can rapidly deploy. You can run it off a generator. You can run it off battery packs. You can even run it off solar panels. Because it uses less power than a coffee maker, you can put it into those disaster zones, whether it's tornado, a flood, a fire, and be able to triage patients and help determine, do they need to go to the nearest level 1 trauma center that's still open, or is it something that we can monitor as an outpatient and they can get a follow-up in a few weeks with their primary care provider?
That's huge. Early decision-making tool.
Exactly.
For significant decisions to be made in human life. James, I want to, I don't know if you had said this, but what I find is important is you are FDA approved, ready, mission ready to go. And you're here in an accelerator.
Yes.
Right? You are a more mature company. You guys are already global. Can we talk about, and you mentioned in your past life you saw that significance, but what were you seeing in this ecosystem that now was the time to explore the federal government or even the Department of Defense?
I think there's a lot of initiatives with modernizing healthcare and modernizing our government and our VA health system. But then I looked at some of the geopolitical things that are going on today, like the war that's going on in Ukraine, and seeing that hospitals are part of getting the war. They're getting destroyed. And these patients are now in bunkers without having any type of diagnostic ability for these doctors to treat these people that got injured. You look at Israel, there's another place that's constant influx of conflict, and there's a need. There are drones attacks, there are bombings that are happening, and they're happening to civilian areas that could be including hospitals or even Palestine, right? You could have these people that need access to imaging that aren't getting it. But you bring it back even stateside, and it goes back to the delay in care and some of those natural disasters, and even in our VA health system, where there are veterans that live hours and hours away from their nearest VA.
Absolutely.
Right? That doesn't mean they should be precluded from care because they live 6 hours away. And this is a device that we know we can put into those locations and get the diagnostic quality. I think for us as a company, we feel like we are mature enough, to your point, to be able to support that type of large initiative. And we've been proven in these austere environments, whether it is out in Malawi and sub-Saharan Africa, or working in Uganda or in Pakistan. And we've proven, even in rural Canada, that this device can make a profound impact on the care of those patients. So why wouldn't we want to bring it here stateside?
And you've been getting the demand signal from the military already. Can you expand upon that? I think it was
Yes.
Knocking on your door as opposed to the other way around.
It's always nice when you have a piece of technology to be pulled in instead of having to push it. And what we found was that the VA health system, even some of these humanitarian issues with sending scanners over to Ukraine, they had reached out to us and they wanted to know how do they acquire this technology, because they've seen the poster presentations, they've seen the podium presentations at the big conferences around stroke, around critical care medicine, around emergency medicine. And we've gotten this I'd say group of clinical buy-in from prominent physicians across the globe, not just here in the US, that have said ultra low field is here to stay, and it is a tool that you don't want to miss out on. And so I think having that robust set of data helped give us the confidence to approach the government, because we know that it's a big, complex beast. It's almost a different animal all in itself that you really need to understand the intricacies, or you could spend a lot of time and a lot of money going down the wrong pathway without knowing it. And I think that's what drew us to Q Branch, right? Is that we didn't understand and speak that language, even though I had sold into the government.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it into it for the first place is a much higher bar set. And having that robust clinical evidence, being mature enough as a company to be actually able to support winning a contract and being able to scale at the rate that the government is going to expect, was something that we wanted to be sure we were ready for, and that we had the right resources, and that we weren't going to strain our startup company by investing money without having a clear path to where we're headed.
Right, the education, right? And not going to random websites of, hey, this is how you sell, and then you read something different in a different website. Well, wait a minute, this I'm not seeing where these two coalesce in that way, and you get more confused and more frustrated. And then you talk to somebody else. So we get that. It's tough, but you want definitely to be in the scenario you're not pushing your way in. You want to be pulled in, and sometimes, as big as the military is, you have to assemble, call it a cohort of the willing.
Yes.
To really bring you. And the cohort of the willing may be the actual end users or the procurement folks. And what I think nice about you guys getting into this space is that once you get and validate that pathway, more opportunities will come in and that you could possibly leverage in that experience. And then you're off to the races.
No question. I mean, this week has been apparently obvious that, there is a desperate need for this technology. Q Branch has been great in introducing us and making those connections and bridging the gap for us, not only on understanding on different pathways, but actually introducing us to decision makers that can write checks, that can tell us this is exactly the path you need to be going down. And whether it's the SOCOM team or working with some of the AF Works, the Air
Right.
Force Works
AFWorks, right.
AFWorks, or any of these other groups that are looking at what does the future of our military, or even outside of the military and some of the humanitarian
Right.
missions. You guys have made that so easy and so seamless. So we're not going down that pathway of working with, Joe Schmo down the street who says they have connections, wants to charge you an arm and a leg to make those introductions, and then you pay them and they go nowhere. Because trust me, there are plenty of companies out there that wanted to work with us and asked us and made promises to us that they could do something for us, but nobody has had the level of expertise, the level of connections that Q Branch has been able to provide.
And it's a team effort, right? Because this is a long game. The way we look at this, I appreciate those kind words. It's we're going into the Super Bowl, right? And it comes down to you're the quarterback. Okay, we need a lineman. We need to be able to do this. And you're going up against different defenses, quite frankly, different communities. Not that they're trying to keep you away, but think of it as the obstacles that you have to navigate in order to get to the touchdowns that you need. And those touchdowns, I think, ultimately is not necessarily the swoop, right? When sometimes when businesses such as yourself is, hey, I have an MRI device, that's a product. You should be thinking about your device as you're providing a capability to those lives that are in the government or abroad, and quite frankly, all life at that point.
No, I agree. I think that we look at through that lens. If we do what's right for the patient, the rest is going to follow. And that's been our true north as a company is how do we do what's best for the patient and make sure that when we are doing it, that they're safe, that it's effective, it's adding value, that the clinicians see value. And In the hospital, it's easy because there's an economic story with this, there's an operational story with this, and then there's a clinical story with this. We want to elevate that message outside of the hospital because we know that there are many other people that can benefit from having reliable, consistent, accessible, affordable brain imaging. And we know that over 80% of the world doesn't have access to it.
Right.
And we want to bridge that gap. And we have started to by doing partnerships with, say, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who have placed those around the world, or even just doing research and development in underserved areas of the US or Canada or Australia, where people may have a hesitancy, even if they do have a MRI nearby, to step foot into a hospital. They have a distrust for the system. So we've worked with a lot of different partners that have said, we want to take this device out to the community because there is disparity between those who live close and have a certain level of trust within the healthcare system versus those that may live a little more rural, that maybe they're indigenous populations that don't understand the medicine and the healthcare. And so they're a lot more hesitant to even want to try to get evaluated.
Yeah. You know, James, I'm going to shift gears on you
Yeah.
now, okay? I'm going to throw you off guard. The first question normally that I ask folks is like, hey, if you were to give yourself a call sign, what would it be? But you went, like, you nailed that. You went straight to it. You said, okay, James, the Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
That's your call sign. So we're going to move to the second one. What book are you reading or have you read before that really has inspired you to do what you do today?
Yeah. There's been a couple, and a lot of them, because I came from the sales world, they probably resonate more with the sales audience. There's one, I'm trying to think of the name of it, and I'm drawing a blank on the
That's
name.
okay, man.
It's a body language, and I'm trying to think of it. It's all about reading people.
Reading people?
Yeah. There's another one, It's Human to Sell. That's been another great one. And I think a lot of the books that I do read that are coming around are really around understanding why people are motivated to do certain things and then looking for signs that, would tell me otherwise. So as simple as making eye contact. I can tell you're engaged to this conversation. I can tell your body language is showing that you're facing me, you're nodding your head. It's a very comfortable
Sure, those
conversation.
mannerisms, right.
And so I really want to study to understand when I am working with an individual that what I'm saying resonates. I get into technical terms, I get into clinical terms, and I want to make sure that I'm not blowing by you or it's going over your head, because every person that I talk to has a different background, a different expertise, and I want to make sure that I can connect with them and make sure that whatever we're talking about resonates and it's valuable. Because if I come to you and I go, hey, we have this great portable MRI, and you're like, I'm a baseball coach, who cares, right? And I probably could tie it to it, but ultimately our goal is to solve a problem, and we can't create that problem out of thin air. So a lot of what I do is ask a lot of questions to better understand, what are your pain points? What are some of your strategic goals? How are you working to achieve them? What have you done in the past that has helped you achieve a previous goal, and how could we tie that potentially to what we're doing to or looking at today?
That's amazing. What's next for you guys?
Shane, can we go back? I'm gonna
Go ahead. What's up?
All right, changing the book.
Okay.
So the book that I love and tell to all
Okay, hang on a second. So James, what book did you find inspirational to you, or what was the last book that you just read?
I would say the most inspirational book that I've read is called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And it's followed a lot of individuals that probably came from your background. There were a lot of West Point grads, and they looked at all varieties and all walks of life with all different educational levels. And they looked at who are successful and who have failed along the way and why. And the number one thing that they found is people with grit are the ones that really push and persevere and succeed. And I'm sure you saw that in your life, working with different aspects of the military, and just even in your professional life as well. It's not the smartest person in the room. It's not the person that has the most network or the widest, broadest network. It's the people that can get punched in the face repeatedly and continue to push forward. And I've tried to think of myself in that way and think of my career in that way, is that, hey, I'll go back to when before I was at Hyperfine, I used to sell phone books for Yellow Book, and this is 2012, 2014.
That's amazing. I love that.
This is the age of the internet.
Yes.
Those people are using phone books as doorstops or fire
Oh
starters.
my gosh, I
right?
love that. I love that.
So
yeah.
I got punched in the face by small business owners daily, and it didn't matter to me if I could get one business owner to find value through cold calling and knocking on door to door daily. That was a win for me, and that made it worthwhile. And that's the grit I'm talking about. There have been plenty of companies that have had very, very smart people, but if they don't have the perseverance to make that one extra sales call at the end of the day, they don't have the perseverance to follow up immediately after the meeting and make sure it's top of mind awareness, I don't think they're going to be successful in this type of role.
Well, I can tell you right now, James, in this federal ecosystem, it's going to take somebody with grit to lead that charge. I think you have that, right? I love that you have the past experience because you may not have found it to be immediate, but you gained in knowledge and fine-tuned this effort that you're really demonstrating success in. And I'll tell you, getting into the federal ecosystem isn't for the faint of heart, right? Because we demand the best. And I know right now you have the product that is the best of breed right now. So you are a complement to that. You and your team are a complement to that to give the best to the best. So with that, that's part of the reason why we selected you guys for this program. One, our view was, can you even get into this environment?
Yes.
And absolutely you can. You have demonstrated success in the commercial sector, global sector. This is just a missing piece. And I think you're going to see this compounding effect come even faster. And we're going to do that together.
Yeah, and I can't wait to do that. And it's already been apparent that you guys mean what you say. This isn't just lip service. This week alone, we've met with a number of key influential individuals that there's no chance that I would have gotten FaceTime with without the assistance of Q Branch. And it is a partnership. There are times when I can call Macy immediately and she picks up.
Right.
And it could be as simple as, how do I fill out this contract? Or do you know this person? Or could you set up a meeting? And you guys have time and time again delivered. And that's the type of partnership that is required to be successful in this space. Because like I said before, there's plenty of people that will claim they have those relationships and claim that they can take you down the best pathway. But I've seen other companies spend millions of dollars going down rabbit holes. And that's why we came to you guys, knowing that truly you guys weren't just lip service. You have proof in the pudding. You've done it before with other companies, and you're going to continue to do it. So we really look forward to the continued partnership.
This is just the beginning, James.
It's exciting.
And I can't wait to meet Maria and the team. Let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.